experiment, and BH Paints. Paint it, love it with BH Paints. A couple Fridays ago, you see, I was so bored. Then, my virgin tell me about the chill spot on Nationwide 90 FM. Hey, you know, say my radio stuck on Nationwide, you know.
Stop by, chill out with Empress Golding every Friday at 1:30 to 2:30 p.m. Come make we link up at the chill spot during Every Woman. This program is all about women who link up, stars that come out and have lunch or even a drink with us. Enjoy the vibes while listening to your favorite music and chat with special prominent female guests about agreed aspects of their life journey.
The Chill Spot with Empress Golding on Nationwide 90 FM. The revolution in media.
Before me go home, I do some stuff. Release my mind and relax. I'm a chill spot.
I'm Dennis Brooks.
I'm Alan Campbell.
I'm Floyd Green.
And I'm Garth Williams. Catch us on the Jamaican Dadz podcast right here on Nationwide 90 FM, Thursdays at 8 p.m. with a repeat on Sundays at 6 p.m.
The Jamaican Dadz podcast is all about providing men with a healthy, safe, and functional forum to tackle many of the taboo topics that concern our masculinity.
Like everyone else out there, we're dads of varying amounts of experience who come from different backgrounds and often view the world differently.
We're definitely not perfect, but we're all brethren and we're all committed to this piece of rock called Jamaica.
Too often, there are no safe spaces for men to explore the issues which are important to us.
Plus, most of the content out there about parenthood is produced by women, for women. So we think it is important that we be the change we want to see.
Follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Jamaican Dadz with a Z.
And definitely join us here on Nationwide 90 FM every Thursday at 8 p.m. with a repeat on Sundays at 6 p.m. for the Jamaican Dadz podcast. It's a revolution in media.
You cannot beat a child to take away its tears. The words of a Kenyan proverb, which bring us into this episode of the Jamaican Dadz podcast. I'm Garth Williams, and in studio with me is none other than our very good friend, CEO of Edufocal Limited, Gordon Swaby. Hey, Gordon.
Garth, how are you doing? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure to have you, Gordon. Last time you were with us was for Christmas.
Yes.
And this time around, there are no holidays.
And I've lost weight. So
well, very good. You're a fraction of the man you were in the Christmas period. Happy to have you with us. I will be joined momentarily by Dennis Brooks, but I think also Marlon is online. Marlon? All right. Marlon, unmute. Just look on your Zoom screen and unmute. Marlon will join us in a moment. But of course, tonight, folks, of course, just to remind you that this program provides a functional forum to tackle many of the taboo topics which concern fatherhood and parenting. And tonight's topic is not so much taboo, but it certainly is an essential part of our lives right now, central to how we raise our children, to how we educate our children. This evening, we're talking about getting the best results out of your online and homeschool experience. And if you know anything about online schooling in Jamaica, Edufocal is one of the leaders in that regard. So Gordon is going to be here this evening, or Gordon is here this evening to help guide us through that conversation around online school and homeschool. Dennis Brooks!
Greetings, earthlings.
So happy to have you with us, Dennis. But before we get down into our conversation, the big question that we want to fire off with in our opening salvo, the question is very simple. Are there any personality traits that you see in your children which you think are genetic? Are there any personality traits you see in your children which you think are genetic? And you know what's funny about having this conversation right now? Because Marlon online, his son Judah is 2.
Mm-hmm.
Dennis' son Jackson is 2.
Yes, exactly 3 months behind.
Gordon's son, entrepreneur, Alexander. Do people still tease you about that? Call him?
No,
not anymore.
It's so funny. I'm not using the name. I'm not using the name entrepreneur much these days,
right?
Yeah, because I mean, we have his real name out there.
Of course, right? So Alex, right? Alexander.
Alex, his name is
right.
Alexander.
So Alex is like what, 6 months, 7 months? Enrich just say
Oh, he's 9 months now.
yeah. See, that was my next
Yeah,
guess.
9 months.
I was gonna
Can
get
you believe
there.
that? Can you believe that?
So at the moment, there is not much that you could necessarily see in your children that you could say, you know, yeah, I'm get that from mommy or I'm get that from daddy. But let's still have that conversation though. I mean, based on what you would have heard from your uncles, your parents, your aunts, etc., other relatives, are there any things that they see in your children where they go, yes, Dennis, I'd see a so you did stay when you were, yeah.
Yeah, but then is that genetics, as in biological genetics or social genetics? Because there's a lot of things that people apply to genetics, and it's really just socialization from your family traits.
Well, that's true, but let's stop. But let's still have the conversation, though. Are there any things that they have identified and said, yes, Dennis, or
Yeah, man, I did breed. I don't know that.
what particular thing? What particular thing have they identified?
Chatting, man. You have to ask.
What?
Chatting.
The chatting, yeah, the scare.
We can make a lot of money from that, you know.
Yes, of course.
Man.
No complaints.
Yeah,
But then,
absolutely.
them said, no, man. Are you that man? The
That-
chatting.
That's all you.
And then
But then your mom was a teacher, and the mom is a people who
she
work.
still is.
If it is right,
Yeah.
if your parents a teacher, preacher, lawyer,
Mhm.
any one of those three,
Yeah.
you're gonna definitely chat now. And that was a constant on my reports when I was growing up.
Oh,
You know, Garth talks too
too
much. And
Needs
I'm
to
like,
settle down.
no, there was no settling down at all.
Okay.
Like, I was always pretty much focused and delivering, but
Settled to talk.
settled to talk. Once I get into that chair, nice and comfy, I'm ready to have a conversation.
Yeah.
How about you?
I had no
Gordon?
skills and no talents. I mean, no, I'm serious. You know, I remember a football coach said to me, the only reason you're on the football team is because your father. You know? But he said to me,
really?
yeah, man, that's what he
Wow.
said to me in prep school.
What was Dad's influence on that, though? Did
Ah,
Daddy really have an
my
influence?
father was very prominent in the school, you know, did a lot, and you know, I guess they just kind of felt, you know,
Obliged
to facilitate. But I mean,
Find
really,
something
all I
you
did,
speak, they're gonna-
no,
Right?
but I love eating patties, and they'd put me on the bench, and you know, every now and again they'd give me a break, and I'd run up and down on the field.
Right.
But yeah, I didn't have many talents at the time. I mean, so here's the thing, you know, back then, what was appreciated was more, you know, I'd say hard skills, things that, you know, whether playing football or playing some kind of sport or singing or whatever it is, right?
Mhm.
I only realized that my talents were, you know, leadership skills later on in life.
Right. Intangibles.
Yeah, essentially. But that was not valued in school, and that's not me complaining about how the school was structured at the time, but just to say that it wasn't a thing, and maybe still isn't.
Mhm.
It isn't appreciated as much, but it's a very, very important thing. In my opinion.
Networking, pulling people together.
Absolutely,
Right.
absolutely.
Yeah. So to kind of go back to the question, in my case, my two children is really more along the same socialization. I'd say, because I don't know if you can teach kindness, if you can pass on kindness like that, or
It's emotional intelligence. And
because that is the hallmark of Noel and Nick. Like,
yeah?
super kind. Like
too kind, like people, you have to be
no,
careful. Kind of people that take a feed, yeah?
no, not like that.
Test.
I hear Marlon right there. Yeah.
Finally, are you hearing me now?
Yes, you've unmuted yourself
hearing me
successfully.
now?
Yes, we're hearing you. You've unmuted yourself successfully. Thank you.
Never muted.
Yeah.
All right, it was never muted. I've been hearing you clearly and everything. I was never muted.
No, mute works one way.
What?
Mute works one way. Like, if you're muted, you'll hear us, but we won't hear you.
And I'm telling you, it was never muted on my side.
Okay.
Anyway.
All right, don't worry about it. Yes, my brother, happy to have you. But they are super kind. I grew up with super kind parents as well. And I'm pretty much the same way, but I don't think my children really, well, I mean, they would have seen me be kind at different points in time, but from long time, from long time, them wouldn't, at the stage when they started exhibiting a certain level of kindness and compassion for their fellow man, right, or their fellow boy and fellow girl, right? But at that time when they started exhibiting those things, they would not have seen daddy being kind. You know what I mean? So I don't know, but the chatting is another thing that, boy, let me tell you, when Nick sit down, right, or when Noel sit down and ready to tell you how them day go or what them thinking, like some of those conversations we have at dinner, like when Nick start talk and start ask questions, they're like, oh wow, all right, sure, Nick, Yeah, okay. And I always find a way to answer them. I don't believe that any child's question should go unanswered. That's just me. You know what I mean? If them ask me as a parent, or I'm within earshot, and something I figure I can give an answer to or a response to, I do. Because here what happens. If I don't answer, I feel like somebody else are gonna answer. You understand? And if at some point somebody else are gonna answer them, at least would I want them can compare and say, boy, well, my daddy say, you know what I mean? So them have a reference point, which is me or their mother, rather than their sole reference point for a lot of things is some external source where them have no control over. I don't know what on earth people are saying, you know? So,
well, you know, when you say, because the question is, you know, personality traits,
yeah,
and there, depending on who you ask, there are set things that are defined as personality traits. Yeah. So I'm now digging up back in the recesses of my brain, maybe 20 years ago.
Yeah,
personality theory. I don't even remember.
I see the steam coming off the top of your head right now.
And so like there are theories that would say, okay, there are 5 main personality traits. There are others that say there are other types. Freud would have been psychodynamic, not so much, but yeah. But like in looking at personality, you're looking at certain particular ways that people are, and so like I would ask, you know, well, Jackson is he's slow to warm up to people. I wouldn't say he's not extroverted, but he's just slow to warm up to people. He's not introverted by any stretch of the imagination. And that is something that I'm watching in him to see if he'll be outgoing and into enough things like I was into enough things in school all my life.
Right.
Nice way of saying you were enough.
I said enough things multiple times, enough to subliminally say enough, but not call myself enough.
Involved is what.
But you know, I think it's better to be enough than to not.
I always, you know, I had enough conversation with my teachers, you know, like, Miss, they say I'm enough, and you be enough, Dennis. You be enough. So I'm good. I'm at the place where I can.
But
say
Dennis, I don't know
enough.
any enough person that has not turned out well. I mean, because they got exposed to so many things.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
So I mean, I was always very.
Enough
very
used
hold on, Marlon, you know enough. But hold on, who enough like Marlon? I mean,
like I have never met anyone, male or female, living in Kingston in the demographic, even 20-year-olds now. When I was 20, in my 20s, sorry, every 20-odd-year-old knew Marlon.
Right.
Every 30-odd-year-old knew Marlon, and at that time, every 20-odd-year-old knew Marlon.
Right.
So it's just
they're unborn babies who know Marlon.
Exactly. Well, no,
not like that.
No. I rebuke.
That is not what I meant.
Rebuke it. I bind it up.
That is not what I meant.
Bind it.
That is not what that. You know what? Marlon, let's talk about Judah for a second, because Dennis is clearly on a different path.
Judah. What about Judah's insatiable appetite for the outdoors? Who does he get that from, Marlon?
Come on. Who is the countryman? But that is no. I think outdoors is me, but he's also very curious with like his hands. He plays with everything, tries everything, and that's his mom.
I think that's Beta though.
No, Judah is special.
Me,
no man, Judah is special. I watch some things and I'm like, no,
that's his mom.
Yeah. And who him
and
get the climbing from? I mean,
I mother again. She's the night, but from conversations with her sisters, that's her coming out.
Wow.
You understand? There is a picture. I don't know if you saw the video when he went into the cupboard and was exploring.
Yes.
I will drop a picture in the group later with his mother. Same thing. So that's her. You know. In terms of people, I think it's a mix of me and her in terms of that he is very skeptical of people at first, and that's her, and she will remain skeptical for months. But when he makes a decision quickly, and when he does make a decision quickly, very extrovert, and he's I mean, like at school, everybody know him at school and everything and so forth. He has the same helpful thing that you're like with with
Nick and
Noel
Noel.
and Nick. I think it's probably because if you go to his class, a lot of the parents will tell you that when they come to pick up their child, he is helping with the bag and everything, and he interacts and all. But I think that's just because we give him such room to explore and do things. We allow him to do things, so he's not afraid to just do things. So he's very helpful like that.
Yeah, it's pretty
I
good
think,
content, actually. I gotta admit.
YouTube,
right? All right, you're listening to. Thanks so much for that, Marlon. You're listening to the Jamaican Dads. You're tuned into the Jamaican Dads podcast. When we return, we're gonna take a quick break right now. When we return, we'll be getting right down into the meat of the matter, getting the best results out of your online and homeschool experience. Stay with us.
Thanks for staying with us here on the Jamaican Dads podcast. I'm Dennis Brooks.
I'm Garth Williams, and we've got in studio with us Gordon Swaby, and Marlon Campbell is online as well.
Gordon Swaby doing dual roles tonight. He is, of course, Gordon Swaby of Edufocal fame. You've been doing Edufocal for a while now.
Launched the company was registered November 19, 2010 when I just turned 20. And we launched March 15, 2012. So operational for 9 years, registered for 10 years.
And a dad for 9 months.
There you go.
Yeah. But we're speaking with Gordon tonight, listeners and viewers, because Gordon and Edufocal has even evolved over that time and doing some new things.
Absolutely.
And tonight our focus is on how we can get the most out of a homeschooling experience. And Garth, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, if you ask somebody, would you homeschool your child? You get a particular response.
Yeah, well, and I think part of it too is a lot of homeschooling now is online. When a few years ago, part of the reason why people may have kind of had some level of hesitance around homeschooling is because they never saw leveraging technology to really enhance the educational experience.
Exactly.
So I used to live beside, I had neighbors who they had 4 children, and then they had like 3 of their friends send their children to be homeschooled there, right?
This is in town?
You're right here in Kingston.
Okay.
Yeah. Where I was living before now, right?
Yeah.
So, and at that point, like there are a couple of neighbors who were like, that's a little curious, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know if I'd send I'd make that child to homeschool, you know what I mean? So there was that because...
And there's always been skepticism.
Always been skepticism. But I think now people have been exposed to what...
By force.
Certainly. But to realize that enhancing your homeschooling experience can be done by the way you leverage technology.
Mhm.
I think a lot of people were worried that being at home and away from the physical school plant meant that you were getting late information, old information. Whoever was delivering the lessons at home was not suitably equipped to do so, and for them to keep a pace of the national school curriculum
Mhm.
or
And
educational
also,
curriculum.
unless you're an educator who can do most of it,
Right.
because in some cases you have educators who they do the thing, you know,
Right.
Yeah.
you would end up having to hire teachers to come in and teach your child,
Right.
which can be very expensive. And so, in that regard, it's just deemed not feasible.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I want to say though that I think it is important that we define what homeschooling is in the 21st century, because
Too.
Right.
for me it's I mean, taking myself out of the position that I'm in, when I was growing up and I heard about homeschool, I thought about a parent, a mother or a father, essentially teaching or schooling their child at home.
Mhm.
But the internet has acted as the great disruptor of all things, including education. And I guess fortunately or unfortunately, fortunately in a lot of ways, COVID has transformed positively things that should have happened, or it has kind of expedited the
Right.
processes of many things. So my view is this, I believe that the only way to scale quality teachers, great teachers, is through technology. And what I mean by that is, you can't have a child in a class with 100 other kids and expect them to actually learn in an effective manner. It's just not going to happen. And we can't all live in Kingston. And a lot of what people would consider the best schools are in Kingston, right?
In quotes, in very big
In
quotes.
very big quotes. But at the end of the day, the internet has allowed a great teacher to, through video conferencing, through video tools, to access, or for students to access their knowledge
Right.
and scale it, right? So you have asynchronous learning, you have synchronous learning. Asynchronous is when it is, you're just accessing content and you're learning at your own pace.
Right.
Synchronous is like this, it's live, and they're getting it as it happens. And I think a mixture of both have kind of transformed the quote unquote homeschooling experience. So my company, Edufocal, we run a full-time school, essentially first of its kind in Jamaica. I think we have 52 kids fully enrolled in our school, Edufocal Academy. And it's really not homeschool in the sense that they're registered with us, and they're going to be doing their PEP exams through us, but we don't have four walls that we're operating from. So we have a full class schedule every day. Kids come to school, but they're going to school from their homes, right? And
Right.
it works for some. And what I mean by that, it works for some parents and some kids, and it doesn't work for others. And because it does require some level of resources in terms of, you need somebody at home, to monitor your child. You may need access to, well, not me, you definitely need access to quality internet. And by quality internet, I mean fast enough that you can turn on your video camera and so on and so forth.
Right.
So we're not at the place, we being, I think, Jamaica, we're not at a place where the majority of kids can, opt into quote unquote homeschooling. But certainly I think that with what I'm hearing from the government of Jamaica in terms of the making broadband access a national mandate of sorts, I think that within the next 2 to 3 years, we could have huge positive disruptions in education in Jamaica in terms of access to the internet and rethinking education.
You see, one of the things that I've been thinking about when we think about homeschooling is the fact that there are some students who have suffered as a result of having to switch
Absolutely.
to online pedagogy. But there are, I am certain, some students who would have thrived. And, when you think about that, there are some who will not want to go back to what used to be. And let's not assume, I mean, yes, I have heard the stories and I've spoken with teachers and principals up to today, children preparing for PEP and they're back on the school compound and they are alive and they are telling stories of how much they hated being at home. But there is that 2 or 3 kids in the class who
love it.
They love it.
Because
and there are
they're home with
teachers
their
who love
parents.
it
Yeah,
better.
man. because they're home with their parents, and they may have parents who are working from home too,
Mhm.
and they get to see the kids and they get to do stuff together. So like if it's lunchtime for the child, it's lunchtime for the parent, and they're in the kitchen together.
Right.
So there are a lot of positive stories that people, and I mean, our parents have a lot of positive stories, our students have a lot of positive stories. But remember, how this happened, it was by force.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think because I just want to jump in on that point, because I think because it happened as a matter of immediate necessity, we weren't absolutely prepared for it, because as much as the government had this long-term vision of making greater use of online technology to support the educational efforts, the teaching efforts, it wasn't something that was in train. And
No.
all of a sudden, boom, you've got to do this now, quick and fast.
What I think is going to happen is a hybrid. I think that
Right.
a lot of kids are going to go back to school and they're like, okay, maybe I miss being at home sometimes a little bit.
Right.
Can we kind of see if a mixture is possible? And it sounds far-fetched now, but so did COVID.
Exactly.
Right. So I'm very optimistic.
As I said, there are workplaces like yours that's never going to go back to what it was.
No, absolutely not.
And there are classrooms, there are schools that are never going to go back to what was. And there are children who are just like, no, mom, this works for me.
Yeah.
So how do we move forward? All right, if you could identify the top 5 tools that you need, or the top 5 things you need to operationalize your home and make it more, make the homeschool experience work, what would those things be? What would some of those things
when you're switching from a Windows to a Mac computer, I always tell people,
That's where you really go.
when you're switching from an Android to an iPhone, I always say to people, look, just have an open mind. It's not the same, right? And I'm not saying that iPhone is better than Android, or Android is better than iPhone, or homeschooling is better than in person. I'm just saying that have an open mind. Don't go in expecting things to be a particular way. Just have an open mind. One.
In other words, don't go in expecting that version of this or this version of that.
Correct.
It's a different thing.
Correct.
Achieving the same goals, though, and I think that's
yes. The outcome is the same in terms of your child is ultimately moving from point A to point B. They're in a much better position, and you're getting access to quality education, right? So, for example, a lot of people think that socialization can't happen virtually, but that's not true. You can actually listen. When I was growing up, I would do my 56 kbps internet, dial-up internet, and I'd be in forums and man. And I'm from country, so we never have a lot of it's a small town. Not a lot of people around, but so
56K, you were rich,
man. Dial-up, you had the 2 phone lines, right? So have an open mind. You need a dedicated space. You need a dedicated space for your child, because they need to feel like they're in a different environment.
And on that point, because
that's interesting. That's an interesting point.
I want to question that. You know why? Because we realize, and I mean, I'm married to a teacher, so I see a lot of these things firsthand. We realize that some spaces are not equipped for that.
You mean some homes?
Literally. Sorry, some domestic spaces, some homes, and I literally want to say domestic spaces, because really and truly, some of them, boy, let me tell you,
some of them is under a tree though. Some children are going to school under a tree.
Yeah. Is
hold on? Isn't that an advantage?
Well, in a way,
but you can have school anywhere.
True, but the question I was going to ask was more around, can it be done on a budget?
But Gareth, I'll say this to you.
Yeah.
The government is doing many schools on a budget. What I mean by that is many schools are not equipped. Sorry to say, to be schools. The teachers don't have the resources. The schools aren't well equipped. Really, students shouldn't be going there. That's the bottom line. So the point I'm making is, look, we live in a resource constrained country. Some situations are not perfect or ideal, but we've made it work,
right,
as a country, right? We've done the best that we can do with the resources that we have.
Right.
So obviously, in some households, it may not be. You may not have a big space, but as I'm not sure who said it, was Dennis. It might be a tree outside. Right? It may not be ideal, but it's
I saw a news article recently about a 14-year-old who converted an old bar space into somewhere that he could help younger children, help them with them online schooling and support. And I think you had said it earlier, Gordon. I can't remember the phrase you used where like maybe students will now get more students will get a chance to get exposed to the best teachers, you know, like the very best of teachers because of the internet. Um, the students might be able to benefit from that because it's not a case of where you have to physically sit in a classroom. And you know, in a lot of cases, a lot of these persons we do consider among the best teachers. They're going to be having a classroom of maybe
Absolutely.
30 children, but now it can probably expand to not to pressure the teacher, maybe to 60. So you know, it's doubled because of the internet and so forth.
How I envision our school, Marlon, our online school, Edufocal Academy, I envision after this pandemic is over for kids to be going to Hope Zoo physically, or you know, we're using data to see where most of our students are located, and maybe renting a field from an actual from a physical school and having our own Edufocal Academy sports day. So there's so many possibilities in that, right? So yeah, man, Blue House forever. You know, there are so many opportunities in leveraging technology, but also you interfacing with the physical world, right? So again,
But I don't want to miss out on the point that you are making. That the need for a dedicated space, whatever it is, however big it is or small it is important.
Right.
Because you need to feel like, okay, this is school. And it's the same way if you have a home office, you need a dedicated space. Or I don't believe you must, if you're doing homeschool, it's my view, I don't think you necessarily need to wear a uniform at homeschool, but you certainly need to not be in your
Jammies.
clothes
Yeah.
or your pajama or whatever. Yeah.
Right.
You need to have a sense, your mind needs to get in gear and say, serious work is now taking
Yeah, well, that's a
place.
psychological thing.
So Dennis, I don't think it's a hard and fast thing. I mean, I work from home, and sometimes I'm well put together, but sometimes I'm not. Sometimes I'm like, hey, give me a second, I have to put on a shirt. You know? So, but that,
or
that-
half.
that- yeah, but that may not be the case for some people. Some people
Yeah.
need to be put on their suit and they're sitting around their computer, and that works for them.
Big up Terry Carell. You ever seen Terry Carell do some virtual
Yeah,
stuff?
so she has on the top and then
Full. No, she's full made up,
Oh, yeah,
full
yeah,
hair
yeah.
done,
Everything
full gown.
on
Full.
on blast, on fleek. You're tuned into the Jamaican Dadz podcast, getting the most out of your home or online school experience with Gordon Swaby. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, Gordon is going to finish his list of essentials for optimizing that online school experience.
Here on the Jamaican Dadz podcast, we are having a conversation about how to
Optimize.
Optimize is the word I was looking for. Optimize your
Sounds like you
homeschooling
need some
experience.
homeschooling.
Home something, maybe not school.
Optimizing your homeschooling experience.
Gordon Swaby, the CEO of Edufocal, they do quite a bit of things in relation to optimizing your educational experience, not just at PEP level. You should give them a call. Shameless plug.
Edufocal.com.
There you go.
There you go. But in relation to the academy side of things, you run a school.
We do.
And as in what grade? What grade to what grade?
Grades 4, 5, and 6 right
Grades 4, 5, and
Full-time
6.
school.
52 students, you say.
Yeah.
And you were going through your list of your top things you need to optimize your homeschooling experience.
So dedicated space, a good laptop or tablet. And I put laptop first because, and just it's a personal view. I think
Desktops
that
are dead.
no, it's not even a desk. I mean, it could be a desktop or a laptop. I'm just saying that desktop, laptop versus tablet, it's kind of harder to navigate the tablet in terms of the things that you would need to do, right?
Mhm.
So it's not it's not to say, look, if you can't get access or afford a laptop computer, a tablet is fine, but certainly if you can get a laptop or a desktop, I would recommend that. Of course, quality, it goes without saying, you need quality internet. I mean, if you're streaming video, you need to at least be able to not have lagging, because it ruins the entire experience, right?
Right. So dedicated space, a good laptop or laptop, desktop, or tablet,
Quality internet.
Quality internet.
And the last thing is the right mindset, which I said it a little bit earlier. The right mindset, not only for the student or the child, but the parent, right? Because the parent can ruin the experience for the child.
How so?
You don't want to.
Oh Lord, yes, I've seen this. Go ahead.
You don't want to be overbearing, right? So you don't want to be. How would I put it?
You want to monitor the class, but not be in the class.
Exactly, right?
Right.
You're not the teacher,
Right.
But you also don't want to be too detached from supporting your child. So it's finding the right balance, which is why I said the right mindset for both the child and the parent. But I believe it is led by the parent.
I want to add something to what you're suggesting as well, the points you're making. How about a good teacher or a good program or a good platform? Because that's
some are better than others.
Yeah. How do you what are some of the things you should look for to go, this one makes sense or more sense than the others?
I mean, well, obviously, I think Edufocal is the best.
Yeah. We're not going to argue that point.
I'm a little bit biased, but
what are some of the things that Edufocal has then, which are what you could easily consider standard things to look for?
So, one, all of our classes are recorded every single day. So if a child misses a class, or for whatever reason they can't attend the class or don't want to come to class, they can always watch it afterwards.
How about the quality of your teachers?
So we've been getting access to very good teachers. The head of our science department, Mrs. Watts, she was at a very prominent prep school. She came on board last year. We have a number of very good teachers.
So you also want to make sure that you have a good cadre of
absolutely.
Of
in fact, I'll say no.
Mhm.
I'll say no. Jobs at edufocal.com. If you're a teacher looking to make a career switch from a physical school to an online school, we are hiring. We're always hiring. We're looking for great teachers. So send those resumes our way. jobs@edufocal.com. So we're looking for the best teachers. And we are growing.
Right.
And we've found the solution. For what I would say, students that may not have access to quality internet at home or devices. I mean, that is going to be announced soon.
Right.
But I think it's going to be groundbreaking because when you think about a school, it does not have to be 4 walls.
Right.
Let me hear your thoughts on this, because you mentioned a laptop, desktop, tablet, which is on the hardware side. But what about software? In that some schools are doing it better than other schools because some schools are manipulating the software better. So whether it's Google Classroom, they're giving and receiving and assessing work better than others. They're using I don't know if you think GoToMeeting is better than Zoom, or if there's something better than both of them. You know, what platforms do you use? What kind of user interface do you explore? That software side of it that brings the experience alive can make a huge difference, don't you think?
So here's what I'll say to you. So we use Zoom to facilitate our online school, right? But forget Zoom. Here's what I'll say. I don't want to prepare any child for a specific kind of world. I think the child should be prepared for any kind of world. In other words, software will come and go, things will change, but we need to be able to adapt to situations and circumstances as they happen. So when I think about even myself, a lot of people may say, "Oh, but Edufocal was ready for COVID-19. You know, it was made for you guys." And I'd say,
cause the pandemic.
and I'd say, no. I said, look, a lot of what we did actually was centered around visiting schools and doing sales through schools, and then schools closed. And we had to essentially pivot. That's the word that everybody's using now. But we also had to pivot, right? So we reacted to the situation very quickly. We built out the tools. We built out the software needed to make that switch. When schools closed in March 2020, we were facilitating online classes with thousands of kids on a monthly basis, and we had no experience with that because all we were doing before was just testing quizzes, right? So we had to make a switch, and we could have become paralyzed and say, "Oh my, we're not ready for this," but we were ready. And so I'm saying, I believe that's a mindset, the right mindset to have. And I keep going back to this right mindset thing because it's Zoom today, tomorrow it's something else, right? But there's no software that you can put in front of me that I will not start adjusting and learning to very quickly. And just because I'm a mindset, I have a growth mindset, as they'd call it, right? Not a fixed mindset. And I believe that in this ever-changing and evolving world with NFTs and crypto and blockchain, you have to have that mindset because what is relevant today won't be relevant tomorrow.
Yeah. How do we talk about mindset? I want to build on that. Pardon me a little bit. How do you prepare your child for this? Because, for example, my 12-year-old loves online school, terribly misses her friends. So the trade-off for her is like right now she have PEP next week, so she's super excited to be there every day to see her friends, but she actually prefer the online interface. How do you get your child ready to take on what you are dictating for them essentially as a parent?
So remember what is happening now, is that the reason that she's not able to see her friends is because of COVID-19, right? She's not able to see her friends because of COVID. But what is going to happen is that as we kind of make that shift again, you may have school where her friends are coming over to your house and they're doing school together in that house, or she's going to their house and they're doing school in that house. Or the school may have activities outside of the virtual space. So it's going to be a blending or a harmony of all of these things. So look, they say that it takes 30 days to create a habit or make a habit. And we've been in this pandemic now for one year, 3-4 months. Things have changed. We're not going back to a particular way of being. And if anybody believes that, then I mean, they're in for a surprise. So things have changed, and there's a lot of fatigue right now with people sitting around computers. But then, and people are yearning parties and all that stuff. But it's going to get to a point where they're tired of parties again, and they're going to do less parties. And all right, maybe this online thing, whatever it was for school and for business, is not so bad. Maybe we can kind of find a balance. So I'd say that is what I see happening in the near future in terms of a blending of both a physical in a way, but also the virtual or the online.
If you were to probably throw a word of advice at the government to say, hey, all right, going forward with the blended approach, how should they approach it literally? What would your nugget be to them?
So I serve on the Jamaica Education Transformation Commission, which was created by the Prime Minister in 2020. And a lot of things have been discussed, and I think some very good solutions are being put forward. But I'd say that, one, I think the government is on the right path in terms of, I mentioned it earlier, this idea of broadband being a national mandate, because it is.
Yeah. Like what's on light.
I've said it that we need to. I did a What's on My Mind some years ago in this chair right here, saying we need to get to the point where broadband internet is as essential as streetlights.
Yeah, but here's the other thing. here's the
We
other
don't
more.
have enough street lights.
Yeah,
True.
but here's what I say. Here's what I'll say is more important, right? I have access to the internet. I have a smartphone. There's another person. He or she has access to the internet, smartphone. They have access to the same things I do, but all they do is scroll social media and consume, not necessarily learning. So you may have access to the tools and resources, but you're not taking advantage of it. So I think we also need to teach our people to leverage the internet.
Right.
And we take it for granted because we can.
Yeah.
But I made a tweet today about so many people don't know how to send invoices. They don't know.
Saw that.
Listen, like it's I know it sounds crazy, but you trust me, I deal with this stuff every day. People don't know how to create invoices
Or write letters.
or write letters. I mean, but that's a more complicated thing. No, I'm serious. Writing a letter can be very complicated, but putting together an invoice, I mean, you could just download the app on your phone and you put in what your
details.
charges and it generates a
I
PDF
use
file for
Wave.
you, right? Yeah, there's so many ways, but so look, it's easy to take for granted. Googling is a skill, it's research.
It's true.
It's leveraging Google it's a research skill that a lot of people don't have. So one, yes, it's the ability to access the internet and the tools that are out there, but also being able to leverage it.
Absolutely. Hey, listen, Gordon, we could talk for hours on this matter, but I just kind of want to do a quick recap of some of the points that you have made. When you are considering an online and homeschooling experience for your child, right? You need a physical space, a space that is separate from everywhere else in the house.
Could be under the tree.
Yeah, it could be under the tree. It could be in the yard, right? But obviously within Wi-Fi shot, right? But you need that physical space. You're going to need sensible internet connection, something that will hold up and that has good enough bandwidth to manage how many ever number of devices that are on it. You're going to need, speaking of devices, a good device. Yeah, so a good laptop or desktop or tablet. Yeah, that can really manage what is being thrown at it. You're going to need the right mindset, a positive mindset, looking forward to the opportunity and being willing to learn and know that this is different, but the outcomes will still be the same.
And we have to have conversation as parents.
Exactly.
Don't make the decision and then tell the father, say, "Oh, I'm going to take out so and so out of school and going to be homeschooled."
Right.
Just to give
and also, hold on, and also to check the quality of the academic staff for whichever institution that you choose to use, right? We recommend Edufocal because, well, God, the truth is, Edufocal really is standing up and representing.
Pioneers, groundbreakers,
Indeed.
and they are really good at what.
Yeah, big up to the people online who are giving their views as well. Sorry we didn't get to read them. Ricardo Porcius and others giving us their views.
And Chantilly Brown over on our YouTube channel. So to Damien, to Tashai, thank you so much for your hard work behind the scenes. Gordon, thank you so much again. Marlon online, Floyd in the constituency, Dennis here. Find us on social media at Jamaican Dadz. That's Facebook and Instagram, and the Jamaican Dadz with a Z on Twitter. There we go. All right. So until next time, please do take care of yourselves and each other. Goodbye.